Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and in today's video we'll have a look at how to correctly shut the Airbus A320 down. We have arrived at the gate and the first thing we do is to check for the accumulator pressure. Before we set the parking brake, we just want to make sure that we do actually have accumulator pressure in the green band. Now, we have that. For that reason I have set the parking brake already, as you can see over here. A few words on the parking brake though. If the temperature on one of the brakes is above 500 degrees centigrade or above 350 degrees with the brake fans on, avoid applying the parking brake unless operationally necessary. And the accumulator pressure indication must be in the green band. In case of low accumulator pressure, chocks are required before engine number 1 is being shut down. That's because engine number 1 runs the primary brake system, so if the accumulator pressure is low and engine number 1 is being shut down, then we would immediately lose our braking abilities. Once the parking brake is set, we are going to check the brake pressure indication down here and keep the brake pedals pressed on after the parking brake application until brake pressure indications are above the green band on the triple pressure indicator. Now, when the brake is set, we are going to turn off the anti-ice, and then, and only then, we are going to set the APU bleed push button to on. Now, if the APU is used, set the push button on only immediately before engine shutdown to prevent engine exhaust fumes from entering the air conditioning. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like. You've got the APU air intakes located on the back of the plane here. So when APU bleed is turned on while the engines are still running, you will start ingesting fumes from the engine pretty quickly. So for that reason, APU bleed on and engines shut down. In that sequence. If you wait just a couple seconds, you will immediately start smelling it inside your plane. Now, if single engine taxi had been used, the electric hydraulic pump is turned off next. And now the pilot monitoring is going to make the cabin crew all doors in park announcement. Once the cabin crew has disarmed the doors, the beacon can be switched off. The seatbelt sign can be switched off, and the beacon can be switched off as soon as you're below 20% N2. So beacon off, seatbelts off, and then the fuel pumps are also going to be switched off like this. Finally, make sure that the wing light is also off, since there is the possibility, especially on Airbus A321 aircraft, where you have got a door located just prior to the wing. So over here is your wing light, and in the A321 you have a door just over here, so the wing light might shine onto the jetway, and that can cause a fire to break out right on the jetway next to the wing light. For that reason, make sure that the wing light is actually off. So, finally, we are going to select standby on the transponder, and we are going to have a look at the IRS performance. So click Data, Position Monitor, and then check the IRS. You can see IRS number 2 has drifted rather significantly on this flight. Now, there is a chart in the AFCOM that is going to tell you what the maximum deviation is for IRS drift for every flight. So, when all of that is done, we can run the parking checklist. And the parking checklist is rather easy. Parking brake or chocks. That's brake set in our case, engines off, wing light off, fuel pumps off, parking checklist complete. With ground power available, we are going to shut down the APU. Under weather conditions like these over here, rainy, 12 degrees, we definitely won't need air conditioning. It is warm enough in the cabin. So like that, we can shut the airplane down, and that basically concludes our parking checklist. Now, let's quickly also talk about the securing aircraft procedure, because that is last in line. So, first things first, we've got to make sure that the procedure is applied after the last passenger has left the aircraft and when securing of the aircraft is intended. So, if you want to fly onto another sector, this is the point where you would go into the preliminary cockpit preparation for the next sector, but if you are to leave the aircraft over here, then that is when you apply the securing the aircraft checklist. Okay, so regardless whether the chocks are installed or not, if you want to vacate the airplane, or if you want to leave the airplane, the parking brake handle should be switched on. And keeping the parking brake on reduces the hydraulic leak rate in the brake accumulator. So let's just assume that all passengers have left the airplane by now, so that we can apply the procedure. So, crew oxygen push button off. All IR mode selectors are going to go off. That's 1, 2, 3, always in that direction. Then exterior lights off, all of them. Fasten belts off, no smoking off. And here's the reason why we need to make sure that all the passengers are off. Emergency light switch off. And when the emergency lights are being turned off, then we must not have passengers on board anymore. That is the reason. So, finally, when all of that is done, make sure that the APU bleed push button is off, external power as needed, APU off, and battery 1 and 2 off once the APU flap is fully closed. So that is about 2 minutes after the APU avail light goes out. If you want to monitor if the APU flap is closed, you can do that on the APU ecam page. Over here we can see flap open for now. It does take approximately 2 minutes after the APU avail light goes out for the APU flap to close. The reason we are doing it that way is that switching the batteries off before the APU flap is closed may cause smoke in the cabin during the next flight. So definitely very important that you get this right. If the batteries are off while the APU is running, APU fire extinguishing is also not available. So that is another probable problem that you can run into. So let's say that we were just to switch off the batteries quickly. If a fire then breaks out in the APU, you could not extinguish that. So here we go, the APU flap is closed, and with that we can now turn off the batteries 1 and 2. Finally, check that the windows are closed and locked properly so that nothing can come into the aircraft. And like that, we can now do the securing the aircraft checklist, which reads rather easy. It is oxygen off, emergency exit lights off, batteries off, securing the aircraft checklist complete. And that is it, my friends. The ground power can remain on if you need it, because all that's going to happen when the ground power drops out is that the airplane is going to switch itself off. And that's it. So you can leave the ground power as you want. Now, if you want a little bit more realism, when you're leaving the airplane at nighttime, then you do have the ground service bus located right up here. So if you turn that one on, that's also the reason why you've got that little hole in the cover up here. If you turn that one on, and the ground power is then turned off in the cockpit, then power is going to stay applied to the cabin, where, for example, the cleaners might need light or might need power to operate their cleaning equipment. So external power, as mentioned, you can leave it either way. Now, it is good practice still to turn it off like this, and off we go. So that's it for today's video. I do hope that you enjoyed this A320 tutorial series. There will be many more tutorials out there featuring non-precision approaches and all the special stuff, but these tutorials should give you a good basic idea of how to fly the aircraft for your standard A to B flights. I do hope that you enjoyed these and learned something in this series, and with that I would like to say thank you very much for watching, and as always, if you're up for more, if you're up for all the supplementary procedures tutorials that I'm going to do, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And as always, if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.